Do you know how to feel your bones? Do you know what the sensation they give back? One of the things I think one of the great things about, what a horrible way to say it. Not horrible, but I don't think it's a great thing about disability, but as adaptive yoga students, because at least a lot of us don't have bodies that respond in the same way, we have to learn asana um, from with less ability to control, right? So part of the teacher is, and I say, sometimes I redefine yoga as, or define yoga as being able to integrate what you can feel and control with what you can't feel and can't control. And when you can take all of those threads, all four of those threads, and put them into movement, you've actually done a really good yoga pose. And because that, for example, and this is a line way back from waking, exactly because I'm paralyzed from the chest down, and I have a less, quote, responsive body, but it's in a certain way, but whatever. That's actually been one of my greatest teachers for yogic realization, because a lot of us have the starting point of bodies that don't as directly respond in the ways that you expect, and the ways that maybe some at times in your life you've grown accustomed to. And that's the beginning of your yoga practice. Well, one of the analogies for, quote, more traditional, right, is to try to get them to go, okay, how do you integrate your bones into a yoga practice? You do, because you don't get as much feedback, right? You think about where our control mechanisms are for our brain and our mind goes, I'm going to lift my arm. And while it being subconscious, you fire muscles, push against bones, against ligaments and tendons, and it moves, right? But it's a whole different movement, or a whole different change if you try to feel your bones first and then initiate movement. And we don't have the same type of sensors in our bones, right? So I can do this and get feedback to my brain right away and then to my mind, because I can flex the muscles, because I can control the feedback loop. But with bones, you don't get to access them as directly. We're not wired for that. We kind of hang off our bones and use them somewhat for framing. But part of what my yoga practice did, and also an unbelievable PT who since passed, Mark Bookout, got me to recognize at a new level that your bones are alive. Now, if anyone's broken a bone, how many people have broken a bone? Right?
Yeah.
It freaking hurts, right? So although you don't get to control them as directly, when the flow of prana gets broken. So I had a very advanced yoga teacher say to me that prana, well, he didn't say this to me, but one of the takeaways was that prana flows more directly, and I've said this in trainings for years, flows more directly and in straight lines through your bones. There's a lot more variation in what you can control in your muscles, right? So part of what happens when you don't even realize how much of your organization and your river is traveling through your bones until one breaks. And when it breaks, all of a sudden, it's like it's just chaos. And I think it's part of the chaos that you're feeling is pain, right? And I learned this in a couple times I've broken bones. There's such a difference when even if you like break your wrist, it feels so much better when you get a cast on, right? Or when it gets in traction, because the current that is traveling through your bones actually gets its direction back. When it's broken, it's just going all over the place. So for me, the most significant reduction in pain when I was first injured was when body cast. And there was like around my spine again, the flow of life force went between my legs and my spine got 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 returned, right? And interaction with other injuries too, and I've broken bones. But my point is that when I'm trying to teach traditional students how to integrate what they don't get to control as directly, I often have them to pay a lot more attention to the bones, right? As opposed to their muscular action, right? One of the things I like to say about, I'm thinking about a student I had for, Chris Becker forever, is that like he has cerebral palsy, pretty severe cerebral palsy. And I always tell him, but your bones don't have cerebral palsy, right? If you have MS on this call, your bones don't have MS, right? The delivery system, right, is different. So there's a resource here. So when you hear us say something like one of our universal principles is that alignment is an effortless form of mind-body integration, right? What we're saying is utilize the way that your bones deliver gravity in a way that helps you feel more connected, right? So when I ask you to equalize on your sitting bones or come to the front edge of your sitting bones, if you're on a chair and it's safe, like scoot out a little bit so your sitting bones are more active and watch what it does to the sensation of your whole body. When you can start to get in, realize that the best deliverers of prana, the most direct deliverers of prana, are your bones. So it's like, so I do a lot of like, throughout, slump your shoulders, right? And that feels like, then apparently we think this is relaxing, right? When we have bad posture. But if you now sit up straight and tall and start to lift your chest, it's not just that the lift chest is magic, is that it lines up the bones differently, right? And allows for a more efficient connection through the whole system. And then drop again. So you're trying to figure out how to utilize. Remember, the last few weeks have been about self-realization, if you haven't figured it out, right? I've said it a few times, like the potential in the mind-body relationship to utilize all that we are. Asana is a study in how much you haven't been utilizing, how many of the energies you haven't been utilizing. That's been part of what's happening, right? So I do a lot of stuff with gravity shifts, right? Because when you shift gravities, the force of gravity is coming through your bones differently, right? So move forward and back. Just watch. So like, especially when you sit in a chair, right? Gravity shifts. It's not just pressure releases, but gravity shifts changes the sensation through the whole body, in part and in large part because it's changing the way the bones are receiving your mass, the way they're delivering it to the ground, right? So sit up straight and tall again. So long story longer, I would always challenge traditional students who didn't think about they don't want to think about their bones. They want to think about their breath and their muscular action because they can control those things. They actually think yogic realization comes from control. They would not get the double jeopardy, right? That is not where yogic realization comes from. So balance your head over your neck. What? What does that even mean? What do you mean balance my head over my neck? My head's attached to my neck. No, you can balance it. You can soften your jaw, right? You can start feeling Like one of the things that I constantly forget to include in my yoga poses is my scalp, right? Is my scalp. What? You mean there's space between the skin on your face and your skull? Yeah. Got to know where your skull is though. Got to know where your face and your skull is in relationship to your neck. All these things your brain is receiving the whole time from your body. Your mind just doesn't think it's relevant. It's relevant. So as you balance your head over your neck, work to make a different connection to your sitting bones. Notice I don't say to the flesh of your butt. I'm trying to make a different connection. Now, when I say your heels, I don't mean the flesh of your heels. I mean the bones of your heels. Right? So I want, and that's part of why the instruction is different. Awareness of your heels is very different than the awareness of the balls of your feet. Right? There's a different sensation there. So you're trying to line up your heels, your sitting bones, and your breastbones in an effort to try to balance your head over your neck. Now, when I say balance your head over your neck, I hope you start to try to feel this space, the empty space, right? Now I want you to be more aware of the back of your body, what's in front of you. How do you feel what's behind you? What the hell? That doesn't even make sense to your mind. And when you start letting there be pranic realization reward structure, when you feel where your bones are, when you allow that there's a part of you that you don't directly control, but it's part of your structure, then all of a sudden nuances start to appear to the mind because the brain lets it pass. Lips together, teeth slightly apart. Do you know your teeth are bones, right? Your jaw's a bone. Think how many of the instructions that I give are about bones. You're a conduit.
You want to listen?
It starts with your bones. Bill, you want to put your mute yourself?
Sure.
You're a conduit. Then you can get to your skin. Soften the skin on your face. The inside of your mouth. And your mind stay patient. Can it receive without knowable content? Start to add effort. Hit down through your sitting bones. Extend from the inner groin to the inner knee. Down to the inner heel. Down with your shoulder blades. Spread your shoulder blades. Extend the top of the head up. Don't disturb the pond. Do it all smoothly. Make your effort congruent with your bones. Let go of your day. Prepare to move your bones. Prepare for yoga. Good. And then release. Did anyone notice there's a fair amount of fidgeting today on screen? And so did anyone notice that as you're sitting there and we're holding a little longer and you're going like, then you start to know maybe your face itches and you got this and you got that, and all of a sudden your mind starts to wander because the mind doesn't know how to be in your empty, quiet space. Because so when you hear things like, you know, the mind turns things into subjects and objects, right? Meaning that the mind only gets hold if something becomes other. So when it's asked to sit in the emptiness, hanging in the space of the Grand Canyon, the mind's going to struggle and look for a hold, right? Makes sense. Except that's part of what the yogis are trying to do. There's a whole other dimension that happens when you don't go for the hold. When the mind actually learns how to just go, and it's not like quieting your mind is the goal. It's what's waiting for you if your mind gets quiet, right? And that's different, right? And some days are better than others. Some days I can sit more quietly in it. Other days I can't, right? And that's cool. That's something I just got to accept about myself, right? And that you're different every day. All right. So this bone stuff, right? So if you're on by a table, place your forearms on the table. We're going to pay attention to bones. Like, a possible name for this class would be bones, bones, bones. Bones, 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 and more bones, right? So if I can get a good base, or I'll do it on my lap too, right? I can do it this way, but I'm paying extra attention. But in order to pay attention to what my bones feel like, usually when you do that, you're waiting for the next instruction, right? No, I'm going to pay attention to the contact between my forearms and my thighs, right? And I'm going to try to find where my bones are. And once I make that connection, your emptiness is a resource if your chest learns not to collapse in the emptiness, right? The emptiness is hard for the mind when you collapse, right? It's actually strengthens the mind. So as I make connection between the bones I'm being more towards my knees because I can make an even bonier connection there. And I'm letting the bones by my knees hit the forearms, bones there. And then I'm finding one of my sitting bones and I'm lifting my sternum a little bit. And then I'm going to add broadening between my shoulder blades, right? And I'm going to extend the top of my head, right? So I'm trying to get the grounding sensation. Then I'm going to release. I'm trying to get the grounding sensation to go from bones to muscles to relief. I'm going to do it again because when in doubt in yoga, do it 10,000 times. You'll learn something every time, right? So again, I'm going to ground. I'm going to start with the bones here. I'm going to worry when I'm going like, oh, you know what gets pretty lazy is when I get the bone connection here, the bone in the humerus bone in my arm kind of goes off the radar. So how am I going to find where that bone is? Damn it, that's not easy because my mind doesn't have as many sensors to that bone. I got to find where my tricep and bicep is. Right? So I'm going to start trying to grip my upper arm to find my bone and do that while I'm paying attention to the way that gravity is pressing my forearm into my thigh. And in this structure, I'm going to animize, I'm going to give it energy by lifting my chest. And then it's going to make you want to inhale, right? Wait, you mean you can breathe from bones into breath? Yeah, actually, that's part of the trick. Good, and then release. So where are the bones in your upper arm? Well, take your arm off to the side, right? Or put it straight in front of you. How are you going to get? I mean, a lot of times I can't feel my bones directly. I've got to try to feel everything around my bones and then let there be a hollow corridor where I know my bone must be, right? And so here, I'm going to let my tricep, my back of my arm, that muscle, go into the bone while I'm lengthening my bicep. And then I'm going to pull my shoulder blade back into my socket while extending beyond my fingertips. And I've got all this going with the hope of maybe I can allow there to be an emptiness through the center that paradoxically carries my life force more than anything else. Good, and then release. The heck? It's a lot of work for these damn bones, right? We typically don't pay attention to them until they show up kind of opaque or translucent on an x-ray, or when they hurt, right? So the upper arm, the back of my arm going into the bone, the tricep, the bicep lengthening, back into the shoulder girdle, beyond my fingertips, allowing that there's got to be a corridor through the center of all that there's actually more here, right? And then release. It's not that easy to find your bones, right? Take your arms wide, both of them now, if you can. But if you can't, I don't care. You can go down to your sides. You can do this whole thing with your arms at your sides, right? What you're trying to do is create enough and know that there's more in the center. Good, and then release. Have you ever noticed something kind of cool? Kind of at every level, every continuous level, your bones tend to be in the midline of whatever they're in. A bone that's sticking out of the midline is probably like broken, right? So have I ever told you that the midline really matters in a yoga pose? Have I said that like 40,000 times? And your bones tend to be in the midline? And that's the best deliverer probably of pranic life force. And by the way, all your immune system comes out of your bones. Bone marrow, right? There's some really cool stuff that's going on in your bones, and we don't pay that much attention to it because, damn, I don't get to control those things. I have to receive those things. Hands together if you can. So you try to line things up. Maybe if you can just do the heel of your hands, line things up. Feel the bones. Then move the skin. I want to press on Renee's left wrist. Right? You're so busted. It's got to get in the midline, right? So what's great about bringing your hands into prayer, right, is your bones that are already in the midline of their own midline, right? Then they're coming into the midline again and forming a different kind of midline from two different sides. And so when you equalize the pressure between your hands, right, then you're trying to find a new midline and two becomes one, right? Two sides come together and they become one, right? And when you start to get the two sides, can you see the two sides of your breastbones? Can you see where your two elbows are? Can you find where your two sitting bones are? What? What's going on here? I'm just trying to put my hands together. And wait, if I actually lengthen my fingers and the skin on my fingers and broaden my palms, when anyone does that, whether you're doing it just like this or whatever you can do, does anyone feel more of their body when they line up their hands like this? Please nod yes. Do you agree with me? Are you with me? Am I all alone here again? How could my hands, and when I line up the bones of my hands, how could I feel my whole freaking body? How is that even possible? Because shit's cool, man. Living in a body is freaking cool. It's amazing. So I want to make sure I honor this by lifting my chest, taking the outside of my mouth slightly up towards my ears, and actually feel the wonder of the midline. Good. And then release. And it turns out that yoga poses are like all over the place, right? They're going to throw off the midline. So let's take one arm out. Let's go up. Let's go down. Wait, I missed my other arm, but I can't do both arms. I'll fall over. So we're doing one arm because that's all I can do and still have it be yoga. One arm up. One arm out. Am I referencing this to my sitting bones or am I just moving my arms? Right? Over to the middle. Up again. Wait, what's my opposite sitting bone doing when I'm doing this? Am I part of it? Or am I thinking it's all about the drama of what I'm controlling? Right? Again, inhale out. Up. Forward. Across? What is he doing? He's making crap up. Absolutely, I'm making crap up. Take the other arm behind you. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, revolve. I'm all about making stuff up. Breathe. Where are my legs? How do the bones of my legs feed my spine? What can I do as I sit here? How can I receive? Good, and then come on back to center. Out. Over. He's back to making stuff up. Up. Across. Ground. Oh my God, I'm going to throw my chest open. Why? Because I want my sitting bones in my heels. I want vibrant energy because once I can throw that open, then I can ground up and lift my chest. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Wait, but I want the arm that's across here. I want to make sure the bone of my upper arm is being part of the pose. So as I push against my leg, I take the tricep into the bicep. I extend down beyond my fingertips. I do all that as I turn. Because I'm just making sure I don't forget my bones, for God's sakes. Right? Don't forget your bones. So we're moving around because when I start to squish my bones, I forget that how light things are. Right? You got to remember that things are light. right? All right, well, we're gonna go to the other side. Or no, we're not. We're gonna take our legs wide because I like that. I like getting my bones wide. So I usually talk about getting the groins open and whatever, but now I want to create a triangle on my base, right? Do this almost every week, right? But now I'm going to focus more on where my tailbone is, where each knee is, where each heel is, and then try to feel the midline where my femur bone is. By the way, I broke my femur bone. It's not a cool bone to break. It hurts, right? And I can actually now feel the kind of lump where the break is after all these years, right? I can feel that kind of, that place where they got discontinued for a while, right? So you're hitting down through your sitting bones, lifting your chest. You're trying to feel the connection. One of the ways I do it is broaden across the sacrum to find where my knees are. And then once I do that, I got to do another thing to find where my femur bones would be. Then I hang there and I breathe. Now, what's funny is any hope I have of feeling the midline of my thighs goes away if I drop my chest. Drop your chest. I got nothing here, right? I have to it's all just my imagination. I lift my chest. I find the triangle between my tailbone and my knees. I hit down through my heels. I have to go to that other place using pratyahara to have all this stay here at once. Now I want to be more attentive with my breath. Good, and then release. Now a gravity shift, we do this almost every week. A gravity shift, making the way prana is going through my bones different. So I don't need to go very far right now. I need to listen, right? This is a way different sensation. Can I make it go to the midline? Well, I'm going to tuck my shoulder blade, my right shoulder underneath, so that my midline of my spine gets supported. Oof. Right? And I'm going to make my head not go to the place it always goes to. It's sick of it. Right? And I'm just making sure. I'm going to breathe here for a while into this different variation on my bones. Good, and then release. By the way, I'd like to have this argument with Angelique, but in fact, we'll have it in just a little bit. Go the other way, right? Press down, let gravity change. Angelique, are you getting ready for the argument? All right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good. Press down. I'm actually using you because I know I can pick on you, right? So you're hitting down, you're lifting up. And then coming back to center. So I'm coming forward to Angelique. So here's one, it's not an argument. That was me being coy, right? So the one thing, so if you don't know Angelique's story, she's been before she was injured, she was a vinyasana teacher, which means there's a lot of movement and a lot of breath, right? So Angelique, if you're sitting there, do you know how to breathe for your bones? Can you get to your bones with your breath? Right? It's, yeah.
Sure.
What?
I mean, I breathe, the way I breathe is I breathe. I don't know. I don't know if I breathe from my bones, to be honest with you.
Exactly. And that's part of the thing, is that what's great about vinyasa yoga, and I mean great, is that the bones don't have to be realized directly. You end up getting the breath going through the whole body through movement, and then you start to pick up the bones, right? But for us, because we can't move as much and is in sequentially like a vinyasa flow practice, typically, that the way you access your bones has almost happens a little bit more on retention than it does on inhalation, right? So you need to get the structure there first. And then you can start to include your bones, which happens when you practice any flow sequence enough. So it happens just a different way, right? But for us, right, you have to, there's this place when I have to find where my bones are. I have to go deeply near Shavasana. And I almost have to hold my breath for a second. And then once I ground into the prana that's in my bones, then I can breathe way more powerfully, right? All right, so we're going to take the legs wide again. By the way, all this bone talking, we haven't even talked about the rib cage yet. What the hell? So it's hard to access your rib cage, right? Until you throw your bones off center. So my legs are wide again, right? So this is why a lot of standing poses go off sideways, right? Because there's not as much input. Whoops, I got my legs wide and you can't see. There's not as much input when your legs are together, right? So standing poses take your legs wide so you can find your bones, right? So I'm going to take the bones of my forearm into my legs, and I'm going to use the pressure of that, right, to actually engage my tricep and bicep so I can drop my shoulder blades. And then I'm going to add dimension by extending the bones of my hands, right? But in order to extend the bones of my hands, I have to find the skin on my palms. I need to open. So I'm making this a whole yoga pose. I hope everyone's getting lift right here. We're hovering near shoulder stand right here and upward facing dog, right? There are a whole bunch of things beginning to happen, right? So I'm going to take that. And when that starts to happen, here's the midline again, right? That's coming right through your pose. Now we're going to shift the midline because here I can't get my bones and my ribs as distinguished from each other. It becomes a whole thing. Now I'm going to go over to the side. And all of a sudden, possibility starts to open, right? I start to realize bones differently in my rib cage, right? So instead of slowly, if you let the shoulder roll forward, you're going to collapse your pose. But when you roll it under to find the midline of your spine, then let the fingers of your ribs open. So your inhalation is getting amplified by the fingers of your ribs connected to your spine opening as the breath goes into them. Good, and then collapse. And then do it again. Make sure the fingers, the bones of your ribs are being connected to everything here. Then if you want to add the rest of the pose, you can do that. But I'm really trying to get the bones of my ribs to talk to the bones of my thighs. I haven't even talked about the shins yet. What the hell? Good, and then release. That's a bridge too far, getting my shins. You kidding me? Going the other way. Trying to figure out how to get the fingers of my spine. Remember, the ribs are like connected to your spine. They're like, oh, come on. Let me be part of the spine, right? Let my ribs be, the bones be actually deliverers of the spinal energy, right? So I'm over here. And once I'm over, I can get my ribs differently. And then up. Down here, bone to bone. Bottom rib cage opening. Top rib cage opening. upper arm bone receiving from the tricep and bicep, shoulder blade back feeding the midline, extend beyond the bones of the fingers. Breathe. Good, and then release. When you do it like that, does anybody end up, as you come back out of it, do you feel the hum through your legs too? Can you nod if you do? Right? Are you lying to me? I can't see anyone not nodding. I'm mad at everybody. Over again. Now I'm going to make it more fun. Thing about bones is they're not as fun, right? So I'm just twisting a few times, getting some rhythm here, right? Getting some rhythm. And then I'm going to lift off, making it more fun for your mind now. And I'm going to lift off, like my tailbone's jumping up through my mouth, right? Lifting off, getting more movement. So the mind isn't caught in the depths of the bones. And then over here again, taking advantage of movement and rhythm and leap, right? Because when the mind is asked to feel the bones, it feels ineffective, right? So I'm popping here. And I'm going to come back to the midline. Now I'm open. So one of the things that's hard to get when you're in a chair is when your arms and legs are wide, which is the beginning of every standing pose. I want each femur bone, right, to be connected to each upper arm bone, each shin to be connected to each forearm, each hand to be connected to each foot. Now, god dang, I forget to have the bones in my neck, right? Now I'm going to breathe and let them nudge into my rib cage. This is a really hard pose for me, actually. To be this aware and with that much effort. Good. And then come on back to center. Bring your legs together. So the thing about what I've found when my legs stay together and I don't shift gravity, it's harder for me to find differentiation in my bones. Right? So I'm in the midline now, but now I'm trying to come home. Right? I'm trying to feel the core current through the midline. So if you want to find your midline, right? Find your bones. Find your bones. Good, and then release. So now if you can, pick a leg up. If you can't, cross your legs. These dang. If you can reach forward and touch your calf, touch your calf. But take the bone of your shin bone, your thumbs on the calf, right? And so you could do this if your leg were down too. And just squeeze them together. And then try a little different place and squeeze them together again. And then as you squeeze, lift your chest. Right? So I'm letting go. I'm squeezing and rising. And then going back over my chair. Making sure my pose is staying connected to my shin bone. Right? And then release. So I'm going to try it with my leg down. I'm going to do it with one hand, right? So I can't do both hands. So I'm going to make sure that I squeeze my calf and my shin together as I lift my chest. Squeeze the shin and calf together as you lift the chest, and then switch to the other hand, to the other, right? Shin and calf together, lift your chest. Shin and calf together, lift your chest. Now you can take the other leg up, do. Otherwise, repeat, right? What you did by squeezing and connecting. Again, squeezing the muscle. By the way, you should do stuff like this. You should tactily squeeze the muscles into your bones, right? So you can feel, your brain can start to receive more connection between the feel of your muscles and your bones, right? So I'm just doing this on my legs because I forget to do this on my legs. And I actually like doing this. I like to put them in compression here because then I can really feel my bones come alive in my shin, right? I'm doing it this way. Now I'm going to go and squeeze and lift my chest. And as soon as I squeeze and lift my chest, I hope you're extending from the hip down to the knee, down to the foot, right? You're making this a pose. And then release. And then again. And then release. So I'm going to go to the first side, but if I was just crossing my legs, you could just cross your legs, right? And if you're just crossing your legs, I still want you to squeeze your shin and your calf, right? Here, right? We're going to go and I'm grabbing the outside of the foot, right? I'm starting to turn, right? So I've got an interesting new kind of lever here, right? And you can do this if your legs are just crossed, right? And you're just turning and you're rotating, right? And you're trying to make sure, although you're pushing, I'm pulling back on my foot here. As I'm pulling back on my foot here, I'm trying to drive my knee into my foot, into my hand, right? I'm not just letting this fly back. I'm trying to keep the container here as if I had bone-to-bone connection here, bone-to-bone connection here, and I'm turning, right? Right, so what I want you to get is that when your legs are crossed, whether it's down here, I can do it down here too, right? And turn. And if I'm doing it with my leg down, I'm going to put my forearm bone into my thigh bone, right? In fact, I kind of like this one better, right? But I'm trying to like give variation here, right? So here's, in fact, I don't think this is as good a pose as I'm trying to do it, right? That's not bad, right? I like all the air that's over here, right? So, and then turn, right? So you gotta do it the other way. So we're gonna first do it without lifting the leg up. We're gonna put it across, right? I'm gonna reach across, grab, forearm down, bone to bone, grab my shin bone of the opposite leg, right? And start to turn, right? So I'm really trying to get my bones in the pose. Because without input on the bones, without gravity changes and force changes, your brain will not find your bones, or your mind won't. Your brain always does. So I'm turning here and then release. Now I'm going to contrast that, if you can, with doing it like this. And you get to decide which one you think is more yoga, right? I don't know. I like this one. I don't like this one. But what I don't like about this is that this tends to fly out. Because I have to really try to get that to move this way. And that's hard, right? That means I can't pull on this as much as I want, right? I need to actually like keep my pose in balance. Now I'm turning with my leg up, right? But I do like all this air. Like I said, I get all this. This is kind of cool right here, right? And I'm turning. I don't feel as much earth here in this twist, actually. Good, and then come on back to center. Right, be in the center. Oop, I did one side better than the other. Looks like I'm gonna have to equalize it. I'm gonna put my elbows down on the table or on my thighs. I'm gonna try to go, wait, you twisted way better to the left than the right. So now I'm gonna try to bring it back by using my bones of my elbow, the bones of my upper arm, the bones of my ribs, my sitting bones, my knees, my heels. And I'm going to let the unequalness of my work fall off me like rain. I'm going to find my bones. And then under the stability of my bones, I'm going to pay attention to my breath. Prana, a word structure. So if you go to prana first with your breath, just don't forget your bones. They don't breathe the same way. They breathe differently. Hands into prayer now. Any bone connection you can make it now. Your bones hang out in the midline for a reason. Good, and then release. I remember when, and I can only keep it in my mind in glimpses, that every point in my body and every point in space has a midline, right? So you think about midline in relationship to your whole body. No, every point itself has a midline, right? And I can't believe my bones are there. They beat me there. Damn it. So I'm just going to squeeze my finger and go, wait, that flesh goes right into the bone. Because I remember when a yoga teacher said to me, realize the space between the muscles and the bones. What the hell kind of instruction is that? I can tell you this where I have a lot of nerve stuff in this finger, trigger finger, right? I'm doing so many transfers. The relationship between the muscle and the ligaments and the bones aren't as good. So this is when I should make a little bit more like, give a little bit more like, don't forget your bones in there. Don't forget your bones in there. Because after a while, bones will like comply, right? That's why when you have like CP, you get like deformity because the bones will eventually reshape if there's asymmetrical forces on them. They actually are quite responsive over time, right? So they will, they'll change their shape. So I don't know, one of your takeaways for today's class is which finger should you actually make sure has got a squishier connection between the muscles and the bones? And then when you start doing it with your hands, go like, wait, is there the right stuff between these bones and my palm? Right? Like, wait, do I have all this? Are they like happening together? Chances are no. Chances are you let your skin become like paper mache on a balloon, right? You just let it get all flat and crusty, right? It's like, wait, it's a never ending story. All right. Oh, well. So don't forget, because Anger said like all of dog pose is mirrored in the hands. How could that be? To be continued, right? So find the support for your bones, for God's sakes. Land in your chair. The bones are the structure. The space needs the nourishment. By the way, there's space in your bones too, right? Just like there's space in your muscles. So your chair seat holds up your bones first today. And you start getting into more alignment, you practice some symmetry because you want gravity to flow through you equally. So you're an equal opportunity bone nourisher. You don't forget to if you sit too hard on one sitting bone, that bone's not getting the joy as much, right? Be an equal opportunity nourisher. So now you start to realize why you need to balance your head over your neck so you can receive, so the back of your chair can help hold you up. Then there needs to be lightness. Don't forget your skull, the inside of your mouth has a lot of bone in it, right? And your teeth are bones. Like in your gums, bone, 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 right? Let them get the air. Lips together, teeth slightly apart. From bones to the home. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Thank your bones. Without the structure of your bones, the hum would be wasted. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation. Slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes. And then close them again, and then open them again. Let yourself choose. All right, everybody. It's another week. Cometh the holidays. lions and tigers and bears, and wonderful things too.